Ever stop to think about where truly groundbreaking ideas, where they actually come from? Like, what if the very things that make someone, well, different are also the key to their, extraordinary achievements?
Hmm.
Our source today, this book, Strange Brains and Genius, it kicks things off with a dedication that really grabbed me. It says, "This book is dedicated to the cracked, for they shall let in the light."
That really makes you pause, doesn't it?
It does.
And for this tailored deep dive, we're going to plunge right into the lives of some, well, truly remarkable individuals featured in this book. Think of it as an exploration of these fascinating and sometimes, unsettling connections between unconventional minds and exceptional intellect.
Exactly. And we're not just talking about, garden variety quirks here. This book profiles these influential scientists, inventors, philosophers,
Yeah.
who also happen to navigate the world in ways that most of us probably wouldn't.
Right.
We're going to unpack some truly mind-blowing stories. Figures like an inventor with a rather intense relationship with pigeons.
Yes, the pigeons.
A recluse who took, let's say, snail mail to a whole new level.
A very dark level, yeah.
And a scientist who seemed to prefer the ambience of, well, total darkness. So get ready for a vivid journey into some truly unique lives. We'll try to understand what might have driven their brilliance and their strangeness. So hit that like and the notification bell so that the algorithm won't manipulate what kind of information you can or can't be exposed to. It's how we can tell big tech, hey, I am the master of my own thoughts. You big tech, you can just host the video.
That's right. Well, the book starts by posing a really compelling question. Could there actually be a biological basis linking things like obsessive-compulsive tendencies and genius?
Okay.
It raises this intriguing possibility that variations in brain chemistry, maybe involving neurotransmitters like serotonin, might influence not just behavior, but also creative thinking.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit more. The preface of Strange Brains and Genius really gets you thinking. Could these mental quirks actually provide some sort of creative edge? It highlights how the influential thinkers we're going to discuss, they all seem to share this kind of compulsion to oddness. It suggests it's maybe more than just a series of coincidences,
And the book sets that tone beautifully right from the start with a couple of epigraphs. First, there's Aristotle, though it's quoted via Seneca, stating rather firmly, "No great genius is without some mixture of insanity."
Well, straight to the point.
Right. And then John Briggs suggests that genius thrives at the exhilarating edge of human consciousness. These quotes, they really provide a framework for digging into these extraordinary lives.
Okay, so our first mind-bending stop takes us to the incredible Nikola Tesla. Born 1856, came to the U.S. later, died in 1943.
Right.
Most of us know him for his, revolutionary work on the induction motor and polyphase AC power transmission.
Okay.
That system using multiple alternating currents. It's basically the backbone of our modern electrical grid. Pretty fundamental stuff.
Oh, absolutely foundational. And visually, just imagine a world still stuck with direct current DC power, limited in range, inefficient. Tesla's AC system, well, it essentially allowed electricity to travel huge distances. It lit up cities, powered industries. It was massive. But beyond this monumental achievement, Tesla exhibited this captivating range of what the book calls strange behaviors.
Okay.
He never married, was celibate, and apparently a very striking figure, 6'6", with remarkably long thumbs. And interestingly, his hair supposedly turned white prematurely.
And that's really just scratching the surface of his unique inclinations, let's call them. He had this intense affection for pigeons.
Columbophilia, that's the term.
Yeah, columbophilia.
And a fear of the dark, scotophobia, but also cacophobia, fear of ugliness, rhypophobia, fear of dirt, and even spherophobia, a fear of round objects.
It's quite a list.
It is. Plus, a fascination with the number 3, triphilia, and these vivid visual and auditory hallucinations. Oh, and he often signed documents with the slightly odd initials GI for great inventor.
Okay. Confidence wasn't an issue then.
Clearly not.
And his daily life, it sounds like it was governed by this really fascinating set of routines and compulsions. He was incredibly meticulous about how his food was prepared.
He engaged in various counting rituals involving things like towels, steps he took, even coffee cups. He had the strong aversion to pearls and also germs, and was unusually sensitive to sounds and smells. There are even suggestions he might have had synesthesia-like experiences, where senses kind of blend together in peculiar ways.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. And visually, try to picture this, the book dives into his incredibly unusual approach to invention. It seems he didn't arrive at his groundbreaking designs through, like, logical step-by-step reasoning.
No, not at all.
Instead, he would visualize his inventions in just astonishingly detailed three-dimensional form, almost like running a complete virtual reality simulation right inside his own head.
That's such a crucial point. Tesla himself described this intense mental visualization process. He'd construct and operate his inventions entirely in his mind before ever touching any physical materials.
Oh.
He even had early dreams of flying machines and later pursued designs for vertical takeoff aircraft. It just showcases this incredibly imaginative and, well, pretty unconventional way of tackling complex problems.
Yeah, maybe that ability to visualize so intensely without the limits of physical stuff, maybe that allowed him to explore possibilities that more logically bound inventors might just miss.
It's a strong possibility. It's like he had a different kind of mental toolkit.
And some of his claims and beliefs were, shall we say, a bit out there.
Uh-huh, definitely.
Talking about creating a perpetual nightlight, a powerful death beam, and even claimed he'd received messages from Mars.
Right, which the esteemed British physicist Lord Kelvin viewed with, let's say, considerable skepticism.
Yeah, to put it mildly. And he also went through a phase where he preferred living in darkness, sotophilia, the opposite of his earlier fear, had an interest in religion, though maybe not conventionally. His well-known fondness for pigeons, and even the belief that it might be possible to actually photograph thoughts.
His later years, they were marked by increasing isolation. The book touches on that famous do not disturb sign he kept on his hotel room door.
Right.
And the expensive examination of all his papers after his death. It hints at the depth and maybe the sheer oddity of the ideas he kept exploring in solitude. It does raise that important question. Did this increasing isolation fuel his more eccentric beliefs? Or was it maybe a consequence of them?
It's hard to say, isn't it?
And intense rivalries, Thomas Edison, Marconi, he despised them.
Right. Can't ignore those parts. Genius isn't always nice.
No, definitely not. Complex figures. Visionary, maybe a bit scary. What a life.
Truly extraordinary. Okay, let's shift gears slightly, but stay in the realm of electricity and eccentricity. Oliver Heaviside.
Heaviside.
We cross the Atlantic to Devonshire, England, born 1850, passed away 1925.
Okay.
Heaviside was a brilliant physicist and mathematician. His work dramatically simplified James Clerk Maxwell's very complex equations of electromagnetism.
Which was no small feat.
No. And it led to the prediction of the existence of an ionized layer high up in the atmosphere, what we now call the ionosphere, which is crucial for radio communication.
Another scientific giant for sure. And he predicted superluminal radiation, faster than light phenomenon, still debated today.
Wow. Ahead of his time. Solitary?
Very much so. Never married, celibate, described as slim, short, maybe 5'4", piercing eyes, gentlemanly looking early on, but
the eccentricity kicked in later.
Oh, yeah. And like Tesla, Heaviside also cultivated a remarkably eccentric lifestyle. He essentially became a recluse, a virtual captive within his own home. He adopted some bizarre habits, like painting his fingernails a vibrant cherry pink and amassing this peculiar collection of unusual rocks. He even reportedly used piles and piles of papers to insulate his attic. Can you imagine the visual of that?
It sounds like a fire hazard, honestly.
Yeah.
The book paints this picture of a profoundly reclusive individual, someone who seemed to have pretty strained relationships with his neighbors. There's a mention of the rather curious imprisonment of Miss Way.
Yes, that's intriguing.
Suggesting maybe some kind of intense boundary dispute or just extreme social awkwardness. He also apparently had thermophilia, a love of heat, and was quite demanding in his interactions with his brother's family.
This intense individualism, this sort of disregard for social norms, seems to have been a consistent thread throughout his life, doesn't it? Perhaps it even contributed to his singular focus on his scientific work.
Could be.
And replaced his furniture with granite blocks.
Granite blocks instead of chairs and tables.
Apparently so. Imagine sitting down for tea at Heaviside's place.
You'd need a cushion. And he signed his name, W-O-R-M.
Later in life, yeah. W-O-R-M. Quite the contrast to Tesla's G.I. More self-deprecating, maybe.
We're just odd. And the book even mentions his rather strong and specific views on housekeepers, indicating a very particular way he wanted his environment maintained.
It's fascinating how these seemingly unrelated anxieties kind of manifested in so many areas of his life, from personal habits to social interactions.
We also get a brief glimpse into his health struggles through his correspondence with his friend Searle. And the book notes this rather unusual detail on his death certificate mentioning a ladder, which just adds a touch of mystery to his final moments.
Intriguing. Okay, so that brings us to an 18th century British sculptor, Joseph Nollekens.
Yes, Nollekens, a celebrated sculptor, wasn't he? But his taste in food, maybe not so celebrated.
You are putting it so mildly. Okay, you gotta picture this. Renowned artist, probably the toast of London society, and what's he craving?
Not caviar, I'm guessing?
Not even close. We're talking about the gristle, the fat, the stuff the butcher basically throws away. Scraps off the floor, apparently.
Off the floor, seriously.
Seriously, I mean, the sheer unexpectedness of that for a famous artist, it's just, it's wonderfully bizarre. And apparently he like rancid butter, too.
Wow, okay. That's something. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Was it extreme frugality or just a very peculiar palate? Pickover really paints a picture.
Vivid is the word. But hang on, because it gets even weirder. This guy, this lover of floor scraps, also had a thing for being like cooped up in tiny spaces.
Oh, right, the claustrophilia, a fondness for confinement.
Yeah. Imagine this famous artist just happily squeezed into a cupboard or something, blissfully enjoying being shut in. It's such a strange image.
It really is. You could maybe speculate if that kind of isolation helped his creativity, shutting out the world. Or maybe it was just him being him. Another quirky facet.
Well, speaking of quirky facets, brace yourself for this next bit. So his wife died, right? She was a Catholic naturalist.
Okay.
Nollekens, he was Protestant. And after she passed, he decided on a truly memorable way to, process things. He started getting animal corpses.
Oh, dear. Where is this going?
And turning them into effigies of famous Protestants.
He did what?
Yeah, like taxidermy statues of historical Protestant. I mean, the darkly comedic absurdity of that is just... It's kind of astounding, isn't it?
That's certainly a macabre and definitely unconventional response to grief, filtered through his own beliefs and, well, his sculpting skills, I suppose. It highlights the, shall we say, creative ways grief can manifest.
Creative is one word for it. And the grand finale for Nollekens, his sleeping habits after his wife died. Forget the comfy bed.
Let me guess. The floor.
Bingo. Nollekens apparently preferred the cold, hard floor. But wait for it. Pickover adds this detail where occasionally he'd hide behind couches and then launch surprise attacks on his guests' ankles, like a dog.
He'd bite their ankles.
Oh, well, maybe more like chew or nip, like a playful, if slightly unhinged puppy.
That's certainly memorable. It paints a picture of someone who remained unpredictable right to the end, socially speaking.
Unpredictable is the understatement of the century. Okay, deep breath. From the gristle-loving ankle assaulter, we now jump forward to the 19th century. Another fascinatingly peculiar guy, Charles Waterton.
Ah, Waterton, the English naturalist and taxidermist. He's another classic Pickover subject. Definitely marched to his own drum.
And you won't believe this, the echoes of eccentricity just keep coming, just like our friend Nollekens.
Don't tell me.
Yep. Waterton also had a specific take on deceased creature art. Pickover tells us Waterton also crafted effigies of famed Protestants using animal corpses.
No way. The same thing.
The exact same bizarre hobby. Is there like some secret society for eccentric Protestant taxidermists we don't know about? It's uncanny.
It's a truly remarkable parallel. Makes you wonder about, cultural trends or maybe even some weird personal connection between them. Or just a coincidence. It's so specific.
Seriously. And the similarities don't stop there. You are not going to believe this.
Oh, I'm ready for anything now.
Just like Nollekens ditched his bed for the floor after his wife died, Pickover notes Waterton did exactly the same thing. Never slept in a bed again, preferred the floor.
Wow. So both of them. Floor sleepers, post-bereavement, Protestant effigy makers.
Yeah.
It's eerie.
Right. It's like this incredibly specific pattern connecting these two guys across different times and fields.
It is fascinating. And yeah, a bit eerie. It really makes you think about potential psychological links. Grief. Triggering these very specific, unusual habit changes.
Absolutely mind-boggling stuff. Okay. Now let's journey back in time. Again, 18th century England and the imposing figure of Samuel Johnson. Born 1709, passed away 1784.
Ah, Dr. Johnson.
Exactly. A towering figure in English literature, scholar, poet, and most famously the lexicographer behind the monumental A Dictionary of the English Language.
Which was just a Herculean task, wasn't it? Single-handedly defining tens of thousands of words.
Absolutely immense.
A true literary colossus. But Strange Brains and Genius reveals that Johnson also possessed a rather strange brain, as the book puts it. He exhibited several obsessive-compulsive tendencies, noticeable tics, frequent mutterings to himself, grimaces, and this compulsion to touch every single post he passed while walking.
Right, the post-touching.
Yeah. He also had a fear of certain streets and alleys and was prone to these sudden, rapid, orgies of eating, as the book describes it.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is it possible that the same meticulousness that maybe fueled his obsessive behaviors also contributed to the exhaustive detail and rigor needed for his dictionary work?
That's a really interesting thought. And his oddities extended to his personal habits, too. He reportedly hoarded rancid butter and meat pies.
Wow. Definitely not typical scholar behavior.
No. The book also touches on his lifelong physical ailments and his own belief that he was born almost dead, which perhaps contributed to his anxieties and unusual behaviors.
Of course, his magnum opus was the dictionary. The book gives a little wink to some of the more amusing entries, like his rather blunt definition of, well, fart.
Gotta love the honesty.
And it mentions the somewhat delayed praise he received from Lord Chesterfield, highlighting the often complex dynamics of literary circles back then.
We also learn about his close and sometimes peculiar relationships, particularly with his cat Hodge, famously bought oysters for.
Yes, the pampered cat.
And his interactions with his servant, Frank Barber. It reveals a more human, maybe more vulnerable side to this otherwise formidable intellectual figure.
Definitely adds another layer.
Okay, our next intriguing stop takes us to 18th and 19th century Ireland. The polymath Richard Kirwan, born in Galway in 1733, died 1812.
Kirwan, right.
This guy was a man of vast knowledge, mineralogy, geology, chemistry, meteorology. But some of his scientific theories, like the idea that the biblical flood originated in the southern hemisphere, well, they were a bit outside the mainstream.
To put it mildly, yeah. And his personal eccentricities were apparently quite striking. He suffered from significant food aversions and had chronic difficulty swallowing. His diet, it seems, consisted almost entirely of milk and ham.
Milk and ham. That's bizarre.
Very. And perhaps most notably, he had this obsessive and intense hatred of flies. He considered them his absolute worst nightmare. Imagine living with that level of aversion.
Well, that sounds exhausting. The book describes his rather reclusive habits, too, like inviting guests for conversations at really unusual and inconvenient hours.
Not exactly Mr. Sociable.
Not at all. And his personal attire was apparently quite peculiar, often remarked upon. We also learned about his hypochondria and the rather extreme measures he took to avoid catching cold, including sitting by a roaring fire year-round, even during the hottest summer months.
Wow. That's some serious dedication to avoiding a sniffle.
Seriously. Okay, from Ireland, let's journey back to London to encounter Jeremy Bentham. Born 1748, died 1832.
Oh, Bentham, utilitarianism.
Exactly. Profoundly influential philosopher, jurist, social reformer, best remembered for his utilitarian philosophy actions that promote the greatest happiness for the greatest number. His ideas had a huge impact on legal and social reform.
A truly pivotal thinker. But the book unveils a rather strange brain operating behind these progressive ideas. Bentham was apparently extremely shy and led a remarkably secluded life. He also developed these unusual attachments to inanimate household objects, even giving them affectionate names, like his teapot Dick and his walking stick Dackle.
Naming his teapot. Okay.
It's fascinating, isn't it? To consider how these seemingly odd behaviors might have intertwined with his philosophical views. His intense focus on logic and utility, maybe it extended even into his personal life in these unexpected ways.
Maybe.
The book also highlights his rather peculiar views on death and burial. He suggested that embalmed corpses be publicly displayed.
What?
And his own incredibly detailed instructions for his anatomical dissection after his death are quite something. His body, or rather his skeleton and wax head, is still on display at University College London, according to his wishes. The famous auto icon.
That's memorable. And he wasn't exactly a social butterfly, it seems.
Not really, no. He reportedly had significant difficulties interacting with visitors and seemed to much prefer the company of animals. The book mentions his fondness for cats, pigs, and, rather endearingly, even rodents, whom he apparently considered his best friends.
Rodents as best friends. Okay. Well, now we turn our attention to another London resident, Henry Cavendish. Born 1731, died 1810.
Cavendish, the scientist.
Right. Hugely significant scientist. Physics, chemistry. He's credited with groundbreaking work, like accurately determining the density of the Earth.
Yeah, Cavendish experiment, yeah.
And conducting fundamental research on electricity. A true scientific pioneer. Top-tier stuff.
Absolutely. Yet, according to Strange Brains and Genius, Cavendish was also a man of profound eccentricities. He was excessively shy.
How shy?
So shy, he actively avoided all social interaction. He often communicated solely through written notes, even with his own household staff.
Wow. Notes to his staff.
Yep. He also reportedly had a very peculiar, high-pitched voice and a consistent habit of wearing outdated and rather strange clothing. Always the same style, apparently decades out of fashion.
His reclusive nature was legendary there.
Totally. He harbored this marked fear of women. He would apparently go to great lengths to avoid even seeing them. And despite possessing a considerable fortune, he lived a remarkably simple, solitary life. His social interactions were so minimal that you would even leave written notes for his housekeeper to order his meals, usually just a leg of mutton.
Just notes for dinner.
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay, our exploration continues to Birmingham and the remarkably multifaceted Francis Galton. Born 1822, died in 1911.
Galton, another polymath.
Definitely. Statistician, eugenicist, explorer, anthropologist, inventor, the list goes on. His contributions were significant, pioneering fingerprinting for identification, extensive studies on heredity.
Hugely influential figure. Though it's important to note, some of his ideas, particularly around eugenics, are now viewed with considerable ethical concern.
Right, that's a crucial point.
Yeah.
The book describes Galton's strange brain as having this almost obsessive need to quantify absolutely everything he observed.
Everything.
He apparently experienced vivid visual imagery associated with numbers and held these strong, and as you said, now very controversial, beliefs in eugenics. He also offered rather peculiar and specific medical and travel advice.
The book delves into his rather unique data-driven research methods. His anthropometric laboratory, for instance, where he meticulously collected vast amounts of data on a huge range of human physical and mental traits.
Measuring everything.
Pretty much. And he wasn't just about measurement. He also conceived some rather unusual inventions, like a ventilating top hat. And devices specifically designed to measure boredom and even subjective beauty.
How do you even measure beauty objectively, or boredom?
Well, that's Galton for you. His book, Hereditary Genius, pioneered using stats to study intelligence and heredity. Groundbreaking methods.
Coined terms like anticyclone in eugenics.
Yes. The latter term, obviously, is deeply problematic now. His research areas were vast, though.
Fingerprinting, blood transfusions, twins, criminality.
Even wrote The Art of Travel, a guide for explorers, and he caught weird amphibians in Yugoslavia. Proteus.
A man of action, too. How was he described?
Intelligent, eager blue eyes, heavy brows, long straight mouth, bald head. Sounds intense.
He came from a Quaker background, but lost his faith.
Wrote to his cousin Charles Darwin, saying biblical arguments made him wretched. Abandoned Christianity, his science influenced his beliefs. A complex legacy.
Okay, moving into the 20th century, we encounter the intriguing and ultimately quite tragic figure of Geoffrey Nathaniel Pike. Born 1894, died by suicide in 1948.
Ah, Pike. The Iceman.
That's him, known as the Iceman from Cornwall Gardens. He was an inventor, philosopher, military tactician, championed some incredibly unconventional and often pretty outlandish ideas, especially during World War II.
Pike was undoubtedly brilliant, but also highly unconventional, maybe even chaotic as a thinker. The book highlights his hypergraphia, this compelling urge to write excessively.
Compulsive writing.
Yeah, and his consistently unusual diet, his perpetually disheveled appearance. He seemed to constantly exist on the fringes of innovative, though often impractical concepts.
And his wartime proposals were certainly memorable.
That's one way to put it.
He suggested placing microphones on British barrage balloons to detect enemy aircraft. And then there was the truly extraordinary Habakkuk Project.
Ah, yes, Project Habakkuk.
The ambitious, ultimately unsuccessful idea of constructing an aircraft carrier out of pykrete. This remarkably strong mixture of ice and wood pulp.
An ice aircraft carrier. It sounds bonkers, but they actually built a prototype.
Really? Wow. The book also mentions his involvement with the rather ominously titled Special Death Ray Department.
Doesn't sound good, does it? Sadly, his personal life appeared to be as turbulent as some of his ideas. The book touches on his difficult, often chaotic living conditions, his persistent poor health, and his eventual suicide. It paints a picture of the deeply troubled individual, despite his undeniable intellectual brilliance.
Such a sad end. Finally, our exploration brings us to the more recent and, frankly, deeply unsettling figure of Theodore Kaczynski. Born 1942, known infamously as the Unabomber.
Right. A very different kind of genius, if you can call it that.
Exactly. A highly intelligent mathematician. IQ around 170. Off the charts.
Never married. Celibate.
who chose to abandon academia for this solitary, hermit-like existence in the Montana wilderness, and then engaged in a series of bombings while promoting his anti-technology manifesto.
Kaczynski's strange brain, as detailed in the book, exhibited extreme shyness and this peculiar, intense fascination with the sounds his own body made.
Really?
Yeah. He had a consistent metronomic habit of rocking back and forth, frequent and intense concerns about germs and contamination, and this tendency to hoard rotting food. He was also compulsively driven to meticulously correct even the most minor errors in his own writing and work.
The book outlines his reclusive life in that small, self-built cabin in the remote woods, his impressive academic background in mathematics, and then the disturbing motivations behind his violent acts, which he laid out in his lengthy, disturbing manifesto. Killing 3, injuring 22.
A horrifying turn. Even at Harvard, he seemed off. The plaid sports jacket, the clashing tie, details that suggest someone out of step.
The shack was his whole world. No religion. Despised his parents. Modern society.
Total rejection. Classmates called him alien or not at all, never seen as a person, just as an other.
A professor said many mathematicians are a little bit strange, but this was
way beyond eccentricity. This was a descent into profound isolation and violence.
His brother's letter mentioning he had only $53.01 shows the extremity of his isolation.
Complete withdrawal. His mother wrote, worried that the connection was broken. It serves as a chilling example, doesn't it? How eccentricity and intellectual prowess can tragically veer down such a destructive path.
Absolutely chilling. The book also briefly covers his eventual apprehension and the subsequent trial, bringing a stark and sobering conclusion to this whole exploration of the complex relationship between unusual minds and their impact, good and bad, on the world.
It really does.
So, as we bring this deep dive to a close, a powerful theme really resonates, doesn't it? This recurring presence of unusual behaviors, these strange thought patterns in individuals who also achieve truly extraordinary things.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
Right. For the betterment of humanity in many cases, but also, as with Kaczynski, with devastating consequences. We've journeyed through the fascinatingly strange lives of some truly remarkable figures, all sparked by the insightful source material you shared with us.
And it leaves us contemplating some pretty profound questions, I think. Did these strange brains unlock their genius because of their eccentricities? Or did they maybe achieve greatness in spite of them?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. Or was it just, alongside it, part of the complex package of being human, but maybe amplified in these extraordinary individuals?
And what do we take away? Maybe more acceptance of different ways of thinking, embracing our own quirks.
Perhaps. Thinking outside the box seems crucial for innovation, doesn't it? Maybe we shouldn't be so quick to pathologize difference.
Which brings us to that final thought, that line between genius and madness. It seems so often blurred.
Incredibly thin sometimes, and maybe, just maybe, it's in that blurry zone, that ambiguity, where the most potent creativity and innovation actually happen.
Something to chew on.
And what profound insights into the vast spectrum of human cognition and creativity can we glean by examining these rather extreme examples? It really compels you, the listener, to reflect on your own perceptions and any aha moments that might have surfaced during our exploration today.
Absolutely. And we really want to extend our sincere gratitude for bringing this incredibly thought-provoking book to our attention. We truly hope this personalized deep dive has provided you with that shortcut to being well-informed you were looking for.
And hopefully in a way that was both captivating and entertaining.
Yeah, hopefully.
It certainly prompts reflection, doesn't it? Could the norms and expectations of society sometimes inadvertently suppress the very cracks in our thinking, the ones the dedication mentioned that might allow truly original and groundbreaking ideas to emerge?
Stifling the cracks.
Yeah, it's definitely an idea worth mulling over long after our discussion ends.
Indeed. The human brain, what an utterly wondrous, weird, and just endlessly complex entity it is.
A universe of potential contained within, just a few pounds. Capable of both breathtaking creation and profound strangeness. It's incredible.
It really is. If you found this deep dive into the incredible lives and